the MRP and ERP concepts. So, number one, we have our material requirements planning. We have dependent demand, which is this MRP deals with items where the demand is dependent on the requirements for another product, like the components used to build a finished item. The methodology is it's a way to translate the schedule for finished products into a detailed time-based plan for all the smaller parts, sub-assemblies, and raw materials needed. This was a little rough for me to understand, so I guess the best way I can try and remember is when we're assembling an IKEA product, because we've done that before, you need to have a desk, right? But that desk is going to be made up of smaller things, like maybe the legs of the desk, the screws, so on and so forth. There's 3 questions that it answers. What is needed, how much is needed, and when is it needed? Next, we have our inputs. To run the MRP process, you need 3 main pieces of information: the master production schedule, the bill of materials, and the inventory records, specifically inventory balances that are currently on hand. Here is the linkage of them all, the connection. Again, I don't know if I can fully go over this part, but then we have our master production schedule. This states when finished items are going to be produced, when they're needed, and what quantities. This connects to now aggregate planning. So that relationship to aggregate planning, the MPS is more detailed than the aggregate plan. Aggregate planning, this is an intermediate range plan, usually 2 to 12 months, that deals with broader product groups. Its goal is to set the overall levels of inventory, production, and employment to match demand effectively. The NPS takes those general goals and specifies the plan for specific end items, or the finished product. The example. This shows an example of the figures and introducing the basic planning strategies. So then we move on to our basic planning strategies for uneven demand. So managers often choose from 2 strategies or a combination of them. Chase, meaning matching the production rate exactly to the order rate. Level, which is going to be maintaining a stable workforce and production rate even if demand fluctuates, or a combination of the 2. Again, here is going to be an example. Then we move on to bill of materials, but really fast. Aggregate plan versus our MPS. The aggregate plan shows total quantities for product groups, for example, 1,500 amplifiers in January, while the MPS breaks that down into a specific time-phase quantities of specific end items. For example, 100 of the 240 watt amplifiers in week 1. Now we get on to bill of materials. So this is a listing of all raw materials, parts, sub-assemblies, and quantities that are needed to make 1 unit of a finished product. For example, our product structure tree. This is a visual depiction, sorry, I was reading something. This is a visual example of the requirements in the bill of materials. So it's going to list all components by level. So level 0 is the finished product, level 1 is the next component, and so on. So the chair would then break down into multiple different components like our leg, the seat, and the back assembly. MRP processing. This is the heart of the system. It takes the finished item requirements from the MPS and explodes them into time phase requirements for all the lower level assemblies, parts, and materials. These requirements are then offset by lead time. Here is an example. So in order to have D and E completed by week 5, that would mean that B production can begin here. Sorry, that was a little odd to read. Then we have introductory example as a product structure tree for assembly A is shown with many different components, as we can see, and their respective lead time shown to the side. So the assembly structure shows, for example, that 1A requires 4B. So on and so forth. B requires D and E, and so on. This is going to be an example. I'm not going to go through the example, I don't think. I think the rest might be examples, but we'll check. Let's go through. Yeah, they're going through. Oops, I can't go back. Okay, so part D is saying day 6. So we have, it's showing our spares. So for 4 Bs, we need 2Ds, so on and so forth. That's where we're getting our numbers from. These are just examples. Here are the different terms in the spreadsheet. Gross requirements are the total expected demand for an item during a time period. Scheduled receipts, open orders that are expected to arrive. Projected on hand are inventory expected to be available at the beginning of the period. Net requirements are the actual amount needed after accounting for inventory and scheduled receipts. Again, I'm trying to go back and forth with my notes. Planned order receipts. This is going to be the, oops, that was on the last slide, my bad. The quantity expected to be received by the beginning of the period when an order is placed, and planned order releases is the planned amount to order. This is going to equal the planned order receipts, but is offset backward by the lead time. This is the action item. Now we have primary MRP outputs. This is the system generates a schedule that allows managers to take action. So planned orders are a schedule showing the amount and timing of future orders. Order releases are the authorization to execute the planned orders, and changes are revisions to dates, quantities, or cancellations of existing orders. This goes through the examples. Again, I don't think I'm going to go through the examples. I did do one of the practice problems though. Yeah, so these are all just examples he gave. I did go through the practice problems. And then we have closed loop MRP. This model adds a feedback loop to the basic MRP process. After running MRP and capacity requirements planning, the system asks, is this schedule realistic? If it's not, then feedback requires adjusting the production planning or MPS, but if it is, then yes, the plans are executed and results feedback into the system. So requirements, MRP in service and MRP. Essential requirements for MRP, its use in service industries and the evolution of manufacturing resources planning. So they must have a computer and necessary software. Crucially, the system is going to rely on accurate and up-to-date information in the master schedule, bill of materials, and inventory records. Data integrity is essential in this. MRP and services. So some services, like in restaurants, hospitals, or hotels, are going to have dependent demand links, like the ingredients or supplies to a certain menu item or procedures, and they can be treated using MRP principles. Manufacturing resources planning. Number 2, this is the next stage in the evolution. Once basic MRP is implemented, then inventory data can be augmented with other information. This would include labor hours, material costs, and capital costs. For example, a schedule shows how production units in week 5 to 8 translate into required labor hours, machine hours, and payable costs. Here is that example. And then we have enterprise resource planning. This is a computerized system designed to connect all parts of a business and key parts of its supply chain to a single database. ERP was the next step after MRP1 and MRP2. This has an MRP core typically. They provide a system to capture data and make it available in real time to decision makers across the entire organization. ERP systems are typically composed of a collection of integrated modules. And I think the next slide is just an example. Yeah, here are the key connections. Hope that all makes sense and helps.